Hey everyone, how's it going? Hope you're all doing great, as I always say, following the 3 H's of the channel. And in this video, there's some definitely bizarre encounters in this one. A bird that might have a human face, something to do with extraterrestrials, and some kind of creature that lurks on an old farmland. If this sounds like something you're interested in, definitely pull up a stump with me, and let's jump into it. Thank you for watching. I used to frequently go for walks behind my house. I have a lot of woods on my property, and there were some existing trails there, so sometimes at night I just like to walk them because it's peaceful. So this one night, something happened. It was a few years ago. I was a quarter mile behind my house. I was walking next to this creek, and this creek is on the way home. Suddenly, I freeze. I can't move. I'm now the most afraid I've ever been in my life. I can't see anything or hear anything. I just feel completely numb. My only thought going through my head is, I don't want to die. I don't want to die, over and over again. I begin to hear a thumping noise. I realize it was my own heartbeat. Then I hear a second thumping noise, getting faster and faster. I regain some of my senses, and I realize that I'm being chased. Something is coming after me. It's bipedal. I'm now running. I'm also in tears. I'm about halfway to my house. I can't run anymore. I have to slow down to a bit of a fast jog. I can feel whatever it is gaining on me, and fast. Somehow, I find it within myself to be able to run the last few hundred feet. I burst out of the tree line, and whatever was chasing me stops. I turn around just long enough to see this thing that's darker than the darkness go back into the trees. It didn't really have a specific shape to it. It was just big and chased me on 2 legs. I finally calm down enough when I get to my porch. I've never felt a stronger fear in my life, and I have no clue as to what exactly caused it, or really any recollection as to what happened between when I froze and when I heard something chasing me. When I was younger, my mom married my stepdad, and after this we moved into this really beautiful house. It was kind of out of civilization though. There was a lot of woods, really tall trees in the backyard. My room was on the top floor of this house. I had a window that looked out over the backyard. To give you an idea of the lay of the land, it went my house, then this hill, then there was some brush, then the tree line, and after a while there was a small patch of farmland, and after that it was pure forest for miles. I just sat around at the beginning of my time living there. My mom wanted me to get a hobby. I was just going into my teenage years, and I wanted a telescope, so I got that for my birthday. I popped out the screen on my window because I couldn't see through it. It's just glass on the outside now, so I can use my telescope. I would spend hours at night watching the stars. One night though, I see something moving around. I can usually tell if it's an airplane, and it's definitely not a plane. I think it might be a helicopter, but there's nothing really conclusive about it. I brush it off. A month later, I get bored of the telescope. I start looking at wildlife in the woods because the telescope can see really far. I see coyotes, rabbits, and other forest creatures going about their business. This one night, though, I couldn't sleep. I see something kind of emanating a light, glowing from deep within the woods. My house is weirdly tall on top of a hill, and when I think back, I can see the edge of the forest over the first tree line. I can't see where the glow is coming from, but I can see stuff moving. I see pale bodies between the trees. I kinda get a little spooked. I go back into my bunk bed after shutting the window. Eventually, I do go to sleep. Around 3 a.m. or some wee hour of the morning, I go to the bathroom to drink some water from the faucet. I head out to the top of the stairs that look out over the living room. I hear movement on the wood floors. Back then, I had a dog. I pondered if it could be the dog, or possibly my stepdad or my mom. But their bedroom door is closed. The steps are too light to be my stepdad, but too heavy to be my mom. She is super tiny, and it's definitely not my dog. I start heading downstairs, curious. There's no car in the driveway. It's not my older sister. The dog is not on the couch. Must be in the parents' room. I hear movement in the kitchen. There's a bell on the back door that's attached to the kitchen. It's for the dog to hit it when it needs to go out. I hear the bell. I hear it again and again. The door shuts. I head into the kitchen and then to the back door, and I see the same pale things running over the hill. I run back upstairs. I open the window. They're running across the farmland and then into the woods. Then the light goes dark. I keep watching until sunup. After a while, I fall asleep at my telescope. The next day, nothing was missing, not even food. Sometimes, I still see stuff way out in the woods, but they don't come on the property anymore. My family has a long history of weird and paranormal things. Most of these things aren't really long enough to tell, and a lot of people wouldn't get them, but I think this one is pretty spooky. So this is from Eastern Europe. My great-grandma was rumored to be a powerful witch. I don't really think anyone actually saw her do any witchy things, but everyone just kind of took it as fact. Now, of course, everyone got a little scared when my great-grandparents got divorced. All of my uncles and my dad. Terrible things happened, and they all had to move back in with their mother. The great-grandma was on the other side of the family, so they ended up having to living in the crappiest part of town, full of junkies and alcoholics and just the general unwanted people of society. They didn't even have running water inside their house. They had to fill buckets using a faucet that was on the street. One night, one of my uncles gets up for a glass of water. There's no water left in the buckets. He has to go outside. A friend of his also came out for water, and they started chatting and shooting the breeze about whatever you would be talking about back then. As they're talking and laughing, suddenly there's a loud noise. It sounds like a massive bird flapping its wings really fast. Something crashes onto a nearby tree. They look up and see it. It looks like a deformed bird with dark gray feathers. It's bald in some spots, with very wrinkly skin. Worst of all, it has a human face. The thing looks at them and starts laughing hysterically. They both absolutely lose it and run inside. They don't ever see it again. So fast forward some years. Grandma ended up moving to a better house. All of my uncles have their own families now. They've since moved out, and life has gotten a lot better. Except one. He still lives in the old house. He's the conspiracy nutjob one. He's really bad for it. Even the rest of my paranormal obsessed uncles make fun of him for how crazy he is. He spent like 10 years living as a hermit until he met his wife. My great-grandma is long dead. One day, the crazy uncle is walking down the street late at night. He meets up with a coworker and they start talking. They hear a loud noise, like a huge bird flapping its wings really fast. They both look up and they see the silhouette in the sky. He goes home and tells his wife, tells her that he saw something crash on a large tree outside their house. The wife says that she saw it too. He goes outside, but there's now nothing there. So, fast forward some more years later, a cousin of theirs is coming to town. He was a mess. He had problems with drugs. He was homeless. He went to prison for quite a few charges. My dad isn't really thrilled about him coming, but his brothers are more accepting of him. The day he arrives, he gives Grandma a tight hug and rubs her back. My grandpa's family used to talk a lot of stuff behind her back, so everyone's surprised at how loving their cousin is being. The cousin stays for a couple of weeks without incident. Before he leaves, he gives her another tight hug and rubs her back. 2 months later to the day, Grandpa dies. Dad and his brothers go to his funeral. He says he gets some real weird vibes from his family. Almost at the same time, Grandma gets sick. Her kidneys stop working. Liquid starts leaking into her right lung. She says it hurts, and it turns out to be the spot where Dad's cousin rubbed her back. She dies 5 months later. My uncles are all passing the night away at the funeral home. In the middle of the night, Dad hears a huge bird flapping its wings once again. He's the most skeptic out of the brothers, so he brushes it off, doesn't pay much mind to it. I was staying with my mom's parents for the night. Super Smash Bros. For the Wii U just came out, so my other grandma bought it to cheer me up. I stay up to 1 a.m. playing. When I start to doze off, something crashes on the tree. I run up to the window and see something hanging from a palm on the other side of the street. I can't see its face, but I think it saw mine because it stood still for a while and then flew off. I still look at the trees on my street for weird birds or anything that could possibly look like this. This story has just become another one of the many anecdotes inside my family's history, but for some reason, it's the one that stuck the most with me. A few years ago, when I was midway through my teens, we just moved from a densely populated city to a 60-acre farm in the middle of nowhere because my parents wanted to for some reason. Shortly after we began to get settled in, I decided to have a housewarming party with a group of friends from the city. This was one afternoon. We were walking around the property behind the house just to explore it and goof off. We started walking further than I had tried to previously by myself. I was with my friends, and I had been only living there for maybe a few days. We got to a clearing that was just past the bow of a hill and right outside where the woods started. My friends are running around and chasing each other with sticks or whatever stupid teenager stuff we were doing. I called everyone together to prepare a trek into the woods, eager to see what interesting things might be around. I've always liked hiking, despite having been a city slicker my whole life. I waited for the group to be collected before turning around to face the woods again, which at this point had been behind me while I waited for everyone to be ready. I walk maybe a few yards toward the woods with my friends following behind me before noticing something that looks like an errant tree branch on the ground in front of us. I get closer and I take notice of what it actually is. It's the entire back leg of what I'm guessing used to be a deer, just lying in the middle of this clearing. There were no signs of decomposition or coagulation of blood. The rip was fresh and had probably happened at the very least on the same day. I stand there staring at the leg, sort of dumbfounded, while trying to imagine how it got there. I hear my friends behind me murmuring to themselves. I realize the leg probably freaks them out a lot more than me, because hardly any of them have as much experience as I do with the wilderness, and I turn towards them to quell their paranoia. I say, yeah, this is pretty strange, but it's honestly not super uncommon to find dead animal parts strewn about in areas like this. I don't think it's really that big of a deal. The friend closest to me says, hey, look, and points ahead to what the rest of my friends are now staring at. I look at where he's pointing, and I see tons of animal parts strewn about the edge of where the woods begin. It's mostly various organs, like livers and stomachs, or even intestines. Some are just unidentifiable masses of flesh with tufts of fur still attached. I out loud say, oh, wow, okay. The few girls that were there with us get pretty freaked out for good reason and decide that they want to walk back to the house. One of my bros cites the fact that the sun is starting to go down and he escorts them back, but I think he was probably also pretty paranoid and scared and just didn't want to admit it in front of the girls. Myself and 3 other friends decide to remain and we start our expedition. I walk ahead of the other 3, trying to look confident and fearless, but secretly I'm beginning to feel really uneasy. A short distance from the entrance we find a small creek and we start following along its bank. My friends are tossing rocks into the creek while I'm enjoying the native wildlife. It's mostly just bugs and birds and stuff. The feeling of uneasiness subsides slightly. I start to hear a low moaning noise deeper into the woods. My friends don't seem to notice, so I ignore it, and I keep following the creek while telling myself it's just some animal trying to scare me or being a dick and making creepy noises for no reason. We had been walking for a good 20 minutes or so when I notice that rancid smell, like fermented poop almost. We continue to walk around the bend of this creek, and we see a mass on the ground about 12 yards away. We get close to it and discover quickly that it's a completely mangled body of a very large cow. It looks like it's been there for at least a month. Its bones are broken in its legs. It's missing a lot of ribs. Its face has been picked clean of all soft tissue. The low moaning noises have gotten loud enough at this point that my friends have finally noticed them. I decided that I don't want us to be stuck out here after dark, and I start to lead them back to the house. We get back and screw around playing video games. It was a PlayStation, if you're wondering, or whatever, for the rest of the night. None of my friends wanted to come back to the farm after that. Fast forward about a week. Various animal parts near the entrance of the woods were gone, and I've been spending the last few days trying to relocate the corpse that we ran into next to the creek with no luck. I walk around the fields by myself, still trying to familiarize myself with the whole area. I'm not so much scared by the situation from last week, but I'm just more confused at this point. Nightfall finally comes, and I start heading back towards the house. I'm walking around in the dark without a torch to the light of the full moon because I was that weird kid that liked doing that sort of thing. I make it to a field that had been formerly used as a plot for crops. I don't remember what kind, by the previous farm's owners. I walk down to it for a minute while peering through the darkness and letting my eyes adjust to the moonlight. I stop when I hear some scuffling noises not far ahead of me. I think for a second that my dog had gotten out again, and I curse under my breath. I wait for a minute in silence, expecting him to run up to me while wagging his tail and smiling like the goofy lad he is. I notice something moving across the field, not more than 30 yards away. It's not my dog. Very clearly, I can see some really weird looking thing with pointed ears and an elongated snout crossing my path on all fours, while moving in a way that reminded me of a deer trying to learn how to walk immediately after having been born. Only it doesn't look like a deer. It looks like a cobbled together toy of one, and it's absolutely enormous. It doesn't seem to notice me as I watch it slowly meander away. I wait for it to be out of sight, and I silently sprint back to my house. I walk in and see my dog quietly lying on his bed. I don't mention it to my parents. I just go to my room. A couple days later, I've completely stopped exploring the property at this point, and I've taken to spending most of my time in or around the house. I'm sitting in the living room downstairs playing video games at around 8 at night. Mom pokes her head in and asks me to drag the garbage way out to the curb. I think, oh crap. I put on my shoes. I go outside. The curb is a fair distance away from the house. I don't want to spend more time outside after dark than I need to, so I end up basically jogging to the curb while dragging this garbage can behind me on a gravel road, making a lot of noise and running back to my house as quickly as possible. I accomplish my chore without incident and I continue playing video games. I get done playing games and I retreat to my room for sleep. I'm having trouble dozing off. I decide to light a candle and read a book. My bed is on the ground. I hadn't bothered to set up my frame yet. It's pushed up against the walls that are closest to the outside, on the opposite end of the house, where my parents are asleep. By this point, it's probably 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I hear tapping at the window to the right and past the foot of my bed. I assume it's a tree branch or something. I ignore it. I hear it again. I continue reading. Then, I hear a loud bang on the window that sounds like someone slapping it with an open palm. I get startled and think it's one of my parents outside spying on me or trying to get me to go to sleep. My grades have started to slip because I was staying up too late. I toss the book off the side of the bed and blow out the candle. I sit in silence for a moment. I hear the tapping again. I get really scared. I reach over to the side of my bed to pick up a baseball bat that I had lying next to it. I grip it for dear life, and I get ready to hit something to hell and back. I sit in the dark for what felt like forever, and I hear a dull scratching noise coming from behind the wall near the spot to the right of the window next to my feet. I'm already thinking, oh shit. I listen helplessly as the noise starts to get louder, like really loud. It sounds like there's someone dragging a collection of industrial-grade rakes along the outside of my wall. I pull up my feet and I sit in the fetal position, still gripping the bat. I realize the noise is moving along the wall, getting closer to where I actually was on the bed. I listen to it drag along my right side, around the corner, and finally hover directly behind my head. I sit there in disbelief at how loud this is, preparing myself mentally to die. The noise abruptly stops. I feel my heart about to pop out of my chest. Suddenly, I hear my dog barking. I jump out of bed, still holding my bat. I run to find my dog, pointed at the side entrance of the house, barking loudly and growling. I try to calm him down, but he's going totally crazy. I have never seen him like that before. Mom comes downstairs to see what's up. I tell her that the dog saw something to kind of skirt the reality of what was happening and what I had seen 2 days prior. I finally calm him down enough to get him to stop barking. Mom goes back upstairs. I'm petting my dog while he continues to growl pretty viciously while still pointed at the door. I convinced myself that whatever I had heard in my room must have been a raccoon or something stupid, and that I should see if it's outside, making my dog go crazy. I flip the switch for the side porch light, and I unlock the door, and taking a breath before cracking it open slightly to peer outside. I look out to see a neatly placed, severed pig's foot on the ground, within reach of the porch light. I shut the door and I relock it. I sit at the door with my dog until morning. I lived at that house for another 10 years. After a while, I got over my astounding fears of the forest, and I started exploring the property again, but never went anywhere without my dog, or I didn't stay outside past dark. I'd find weird animal parts in random places from time to time. I just got used to it after a while. Every now and then, my dog would start barking at something, and I would take that as his signal that we needed to go back home. He lived a pretty damn long life, 15 years, but eventually he died of old age. Within a week of that happening, I had to move out, and I had gone to the opposite end of the country. I really miss him. I've never had anything else happen like the things that happened at that house. So, what'd you think of those encounters? Let me know which one was your favorite one down in the comments. Do you have one of your own? I have an email in the description below that you can send them to if you want to, and I'll try to get back to you. In the description as well as a PayPal and a Patreon if you would like to support the channel that way. And also, I know I said Yosemite as Yosemite in the other video. It just came out that way for some reason, but I don't know how many comments I've gotten that are like, it's Yosemite. But yeah, I get words wrong and all that stuff, you know. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoyed that video too, regardless if I said Yosemite or Yosemite. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video and all that stuff, and if you did, then maybe you can like and subscribe. And if you're new to the channel, then I'll put some videos up along here that if you haven't seen them yet, you can check them out. And yeah, thank you for pulling up a stump, and thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.